I feel pretty conflicted on Can You Hear Me because there are so many great ideas, so many great little scenes that give you chills, and there's some amazing fan service in it, and oh my god, they actually acknowledge the Guardians and the Eternals and the Toymaker, which, to steal a quote off Twitter, made me feel like my cock was being flicked. And it's so nice whenever we have some weird, freaky horror content in Doctor Who. It's far too rare. We only had It Takes You Away doing this sort of thing last year, and Can You Hear Me is strange, surreal, and a little bit twisted, and I loved that. More of that, please. In fact, my favourite scene in the whole of the Jodie era so far is easily this one, where a mum's tucking her kid into bed and going, "There is no boogeyman out there until..."
That's not true.
I love that. If I was making this, I'd then go further and have Zellin make the kid's own fingers start coming off, and the kid screaming as her hand comes apart. Come on, Doctor Who, fuck these kids up for life. There's so many things I like about Can You Hear Me, so many great ideas, and I had a blast watching it, but there is one big problem. It does not work at all, and the reason for this is if any Doctor Who episode needed to be a two-parter, it was this one. There are far too many characters, settings, and big interesting ideas and themes for any writer, no matter how competent, to be able to cram into 50 minutes. It needed two parts. The only circumstances where this could have worked as a one-parter would be if you totally cut out some elements of your plot. And you could have done that, some of it's totally unnecessary. Like the Aleppo stuff, that did not need to be in there at all. And the coda goes on for a very long time and wastes a sizable chunk of your runtime as well. So the only time that we've really got with easily the two most interesting original villains that we've seen in Doctor Who in quite some time is a 30-minute block in the middle of the episode. Zellin deserves so much more than that. I cannot express enough how much I love this concept. A freaky bald man in black robes with a tattooed head is just showing up in Friends of the Companions' rooms at night as they go to sleep, and just when they see him, he vanishes into a cloud of smoke. It's an idea that taps into all those times that you've been in bed but you're not quite asleep yet, and you've heard or seen something in the dark, and you felt paralysed and trapped in bed by your fear that there's something or someone in the room. And the episode expands on that idea and reveals that a mysterious man is in your room, and he's an immortal, sinister being from deep space who absorbs your nightmares. It's the kind of mysterious, Lovecraftian cosmic horror that I never expected from the Chibnall era of Doctor Who. And you got his fingers come off and they come flying at you. It's a bit silly, sure, but the episode's full of such strange and interesting imagery that I was kind of just blown away by it. Oh, and the bit where we do a full-on animated origin story made me immediately think of the opening of Watership Down, my favourite movie ever, so that's always a good thing. Although it is weird that this bit comes in the middle of the episode when the way it's done is like a bit of opening narration. Surely this should have been a pre-title sequence, not just lazily dumped in the middle of the episode. I mean, I suppose if this was the opening of the story, then that spoils the twist that this lady was actually evil the whole time, but why did that even need to be a twist? It's like with Orphan 55's reveal that the planet was actually Earth all along. This entire era seems desperate to always have a twist in the episode at any cost, even if that cost is other perfectly serviceable bits of the episode totally stop working. There's so much amazing imagery in Can You Hear Me that I love, but that's almost equally balanced out by just how poorly paced and structured it is. The limited amount of time that we have with our highly interesting villains aside, the other incredibly noticeable problem is that we've only got time for a surface level skim of our incidental characters and the nightmares of the Doctor and her companions. We could have had some full-on allegorical dream sequences like in the famous Buffy episode Restless that go really deep into exploring our characters' innermost fears. But because of the constraints of the format, the level that it's capable of reaching is so shallow that it renders these moments hollow and about a millionth of what they could have been. I love the dream sequence where Graham wakes up in the hospital and his dead wife is there and she's telling him that his cancer's back. That's his greatest fear. It's such a horrifying and heavy and brutal little moment, but then it just ends and it's sort of gone after that. Oh, apart from the bit where Graham brings up this dream to the Doctor during the coda, but because we've got to make time for the resolution of the scenes with Yaz as well, all that the Doctor really has time to say is just, "Oh no, Graham, that is sad, but I don't want to talk about it because I'm socially awkward. Okay, bye." Is that really what you want to say to someone who's afraid that their cancer's gonna come back, Doctor? It's all just so underdone because we got too much to do. We got to make time for our utterly pointless setup with Ancient Aleppo. The three companions bringing their own new characters to the table, the mystery over Zellin, the reveal and the explanation of who Zellin is, who this lady is, what they want, the two planets thing, the Yaz stuff. Oh, and we've also got Ryan's friend who's suffering from depression, which... Okay, can we all just agree from now on that you shouldn't try and cover depression at all unless you're going to dedicate a decent amount of time to it? Because it makes you look like you're brushing it to one side by having it just being this guy's one characteristic. By just chucking it out there but not bothering to cover depression in much depth, you're coming across as dismissive. Which, being dismissive is what makes depression worse for people in the real world. The way they covered depression in this episode really pissed me off. It's not something that should be treated as just another thing that this episode wants to do. They could have done more with it. Maybe in an earlier draft, Zellin started out as a metaphor for his depression. But it comes across as just another thing in the episode. And again, you've got 50 minutes. That's all you got. 50 fucking minutes. And look at how much other stuff you're expecting yourself to do. The Yaz being a runaway kid stuff is easily the strongest character building that the episode does. I am a soppy bastard, so I really enjoyed the reveal that her dream sequence was based on an actual experience she had when she ran away from home as a kid. And the bit where she goes and finds the police officer who helped her that day and she remembers her and Yaz tells her what she's doing now was wonderful, and it got me to warm to Yaz a lot more. Credit where credit's due, this is probably an indication that they have actually been paying attention to the criticism that Season 11 got. We've now seen a defining moment in Yaz's life, and it is emotionally affecting. I just wish I felt the same way about the Ryan and his depressed friend angle. And also Graham, whose nightmare easily carries the most amount of weight, and yet it takes up the least amount of space in the story for some reason. They are clearly making a conscious effort to fix the problems that people had with Season 11. Last year people were complaining that Yaz was so underdone that she wasn't even a character, so in this season she's the most characterised, but that shouldn't come at the expense of other characters, should it? It just seems that they had this idea to do an episode where an immortal man gives people nightmares, but they didn't realise that they could use that as a jumping off point to properly explore the companions and their external relationships on a deeper level. People have been complaining that we don't know that much about the companions. Seeing their worst nightmares on screen should have carried so much more weight than it did. Anyway, all in all, there is a lot to like about Can You Hear Me, but it's been totally mangled by the limitations of the format and whoever's bright idea it was to stuff it full of too many ideas, characters, and only give it one part to play with. Could we maybe bring Zellin back next series, but treat him with the respect he deserves this time? Don't just chuck an amazing villain like this out there and treat him as just another villain in just another episode. Or hell, better idea, just remake this episode as soon as possible. Yeah, just do that actually. Just have the Doctor and the companions all wake up and they've lost their memories. And then we basically just do Can You Hear Me again, but properly this time. Or you could just do the whole era again, but properly this time.